With games set across the course of human history and games that zero in on some of its most interesting eras, this week's set of Xbox deals might just be one for the ages. If you happen to be an Xbox Game Pass member who's been enjoying this month's 4X strategy game Humankind and you feel like expanding your horizons even further, then you can't do much better than the genre's longest reigning ruler, Sid Meier. In the 6th game from the acclaimed Civilization series, you'll once again be trying to turn a simple nomadic tribe into a peerless global superpower. And you'll find more freedom than ever in how you go about doing that, with the deepest and most finely tuned systems yet for trade, city building, espionage, religion, and more. It all just feels a bit more sophisticated than any of its ancestors, more civilized, you might even say. So if you were that kid who watched Pinky and the Brain and thought, yeah, trying to take over the world does sound like a good idea, good job Cartoon Mice, then Civilization 6 is the game for you, especially now that it's 60% off. And of course, you'll be able to expand your strategy gaming empire even further when Age of Empires 4 lands day one on Xbox Game Pass for PC on October 28th.
Of course, the march of progress does tend to tread on quite a few people as it goes, something that Red Dead Redemption 2 players will quickly find out all about. Playing as Arthur Morgan, you'll embark on an epic journey across the American frontier that no longer has much room for the maverick gunslingers that once defined it. Sadly for Mr. Morgan, playing knife games at the dinner table and hog-tying strangers just ain't considered civilized behaviour anymore. But if that has you craving a return to a truly Wild West, then you can always jump into the game's expansive online mode. Currently available in Xbox Game Pass, Red Dead Online is a cowboy's paradise where you and your posse can party up like it's 1860 for as long as you like. And while it might be a place where life has no value and death has a price, the game itself is now 50% off.
Also 50% off to own outright and also available on Xbox Game Pass is Resident Evil 7 Biohazard. But just a quick note, this is not the one with the giant vampire lady. I know some of you get really excited about her, so just skip forward a little if that's your thing. It's the wrong game. No, Biohazard sees Ethan Winters drawn to a run-down plantation out in Louisiana in the hope of finding his wife, Meier. Sadly, he gets a lot more than he bargained for when he also encounters the terrifying family who run the place and the strange infection which has turned those around them into hideous monsters. By throwing some Texas Chainsaw Massacre-ish horror ingredients into the mix, the 7th Resident Evil game manages to create a place so spine-tinglingly scary and hauntingly gruesome that even seasoned fans might find themselves peering through their fingers from time to time.
But one game you'll definitely want an unobstructed view of is F1 2021, which boasts some of the most beautiful racing action we've yet to see on a next-gen machine. With the option to run it in either 120 FPS or in 4K 60 on the Xbox Series X, the action looks absolutely incredible, no matter how fast you're going. Although, if you do bump into a load of stuff along the way, it will still look really painful. There's not really a lot developers can do about that, I'm afraid. But if you're starting out as a total rookie, why not check out the brand new Breaking Point story mode? It lets you work your way up the rankings from a novice racer to a master wheelman, with all the dramatic twists and turns you'd expect to find on the road to success. And if you really want to spice things up, you and your buddy can even play the story mode together as rivals. F1 2021 is 30% off this week, and if you'd like to take the older model out for a test drive, you can download F1 2020 from Xbox Game Pass right now.
With its monochrome art style, melancholy atmosphere, and devious puzzle platforming gameplay, Shady Part of Me will feel immediately familiar to fans of games like Limbo. But that doesn't mean it has to live in anyone's shadow. Now 60% off, Shady Part of Me's minimalistic story revolves around a woman who is attempting to escape from a place that feels very much like some kind of prison. The only person she has to help her along the way is her shadow, giving the player two characters that can be controlled independently, one who can move around the objects in a room, and another who can bound across the shadows that they cast. The game's puzzles will require you to turn lights off and on and move things around to create a pathway for each of the pair, so finding a way for them to work in tandem is the key. You'll be feeling around in the dark at times, but it all feels worth it when you get that light bulb moment.
Now 70% off, Bear With Me boasts a similarly shady aesthetic to create perhaps the most adorable bit of noir ever committed to the screen. Following the exploits of Detective Ted E. Bear and his colleagues around Paper City, this point-and-click adventure has you solving whatever sordid mysteries the mean streets can throw your way. Although you are a teddy bear and your colleagues aren't children, so you probably don't expect to be receiving severed fingers in the mail or anything like that. But what you can expect is a beautifully crafted noir metropolis to search for clues, a weird and wonderful cast of characters to question, and a series of enthralling mysteries to untangle. And also puns. Loads and loads and many, many, many puns. So if wordplay isn't really your speed, you'll have to take the title's advice and bear with it. I'm sorry. Another game which just keeps on getting more and more exciting is Grand Theft Auto 5, which is still dishing out awesome new content almost 8 years after its release, like the recent Los Santos Tuners update, which takes the game's car culture up to a whole new gear. So if you've been waiting to see whether the buzz around it was just a passing thing, now might be finally the time to make the jump, especially at half price. Although if you're an Xbox Series X or S player, you'll have the option of waiting until November for the next-gen version to arrive. It's a tough choice, but you'll be making plenty of those either way once you arrive in San Andreas, as the place is simply overrunning with criminal conspiracies, turf wars, political corruption, and general insanity. And that's before you even take the game online to see what the other players are getting up to.
However, if you find the Trevor Phillips brand of crime to be a little bit too chaotic, perhaps you'd prefer the more organised style of the Mafia Trilogy. Granted, it doesn't have quite the scope of one of Sid Meier's historical epics, but the Mafia games do take place across 3 distinct eras of American crime, each defined by its own conflicts, conquests, and betrayals. Plus, the people here dress way better. The first game sees a simple cab driver trying to rise above the Great Depression, only to find himself drawn into the glamorous, gluttonous worlds of organised crime. Could happen to any of us. In the second, a soldier on leave from duty in World War II ends up in the middle of a very different conflict while trying to protect his family. And the third takes us back to the 60s and down to the Bayou for a bloody revenge quest that promises to drag the underworld kicking and screaming into a whole new era. Emphasis on the kicking and screaming, by the way. Each of these epic tales is more than worth the price of admission on its own, but with all 3 bundled up together for 45% off, forget about it.
And finally, we've got the anthropomorphic Outback critter who defined 90s gaming with the Crash Bandicoot Quadrilogy now 45% off. And while the cartoon platforming king might be the product of a bygone era, he fits right into this one thanks to the lush remaster of the originals which the Insane Trilogy offers. Although that's nothing compared to the truly next-gen ready 4th game which rocks 4K 60 on the Xbox Series X and S. Seriously, you've never seen a spin attack look so smooth. Bringing together the zany characters, ingenious level design and awesome power-ups of the originals and combining them with the eye-watering power of the modern machines, the Crash Quadrilogy is something like Neo Cortex would cook up in his lab. Only it doesn't immediately start rampaging around and attacking everyone. Usually.
That's a wrap on this truly historic bunch of deals. Let us know whether you'll be building empires, breaking wild horses, or just gorging yourself on Wumpa fruits in the comments. And we'll be back with more great deals and all the latest Xbox news soon. So don't forget to hit subscribe and ring that bell. Bye.